Last week, the Joint Committee of the National Assembly on Constitutional Review approved the creation of an additional state for the Southeast Geopolitical Zone. The committee also agreed to revisit the over 278 pending requests for new local government areas and 55 proposals for new states, noting that a newly formed subcommittee will handle additional reviews. While many are calling for the creation of Anioma state, which has gained momentum, a chieftain of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, Kenneth Okonkwo, has urged the Southeast to narrow its state creation agenda to Adada state. Okonkwo made the calls on Monday during the morning show, saying Adada state, with its capital in Nsukka, remains the most suitable choice. Joining us on this show to discuss the National Assembly's approval of the creation of a new state in the Southeast is Kenny Okolugbo, Strategic Communications Consultant to the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Good morning, Ken Okolugbo. Hello.
Good morning, Ruben Abati. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Well, very quickly,
good morning. Thank you for having me. Okay.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. State creation. We're arm of the view that we don't need states, additional states, that we need to get these states viable to make sure that they are centers of productivity rather than centers of consumption. The ones we have are getting more money under President Tinubu. What are they even doing with the money? And now we say we will create more centers of consumption. And the kind of danger that informs that position is what is happening now. Kenneth Okonkwo came here, he said, oh, it should be Adada state in the Southeast. You are saying no, it should be Anioma state, because Anioma has strategic oil fields in the, I think, in the Ukwani area, and that Anioma is more viable. Now, before you know it, there will be more debates, more quarrels, and all that. But you want to make a case for Anioma state. So, make the case. And why do you think it should not be Adada state? Tomorrow, somebody will come up and mention another option. They make a case for Anioma state. And it's Anioma in the Southeast. I thought Anioma was in the Delta, Ukwane area. Is it not Delta? So, please.
Well, thank you, Abati, once again. Congratulations on your milestone that will be coming up on Friday, next Friday, on getting to Diamond. And I know our road to be leading to Lagos. But having said that, let me also make it clear that I'm not speaking here for my principal, the distinguished Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. I'm speaking essentially as someone from Anioma State and someone who has a passion for the region. Yes, Ukwani, which is the local government area I come from, is part of Anioma State. It has 9 local government areas. It has the Ika, it has the Anyocha South, Anyocha North, Oshimili, and that is where the acronym actually came from. When you say Anioma, it's A is for it's for the entire region of the 9 states. When you say we are not from the Southeast, you see, a lot of our people have gone with that misconception that it's like a one-man show being driven by my Senator Ned Nwoko. I support this because it has been an agitation that has been for 50 years. If you remember very well, someone like you, Ruben, will remember that the Rikife Commission in 1975 that dwelt on the issue of creation of states. Anioma was one of the states that were submitted before the creation of Bendel and every other state. You understand, from Bendel. Before now, we had the Western Igbo. When we had the 3 regions, we had the North, South, and the West. We were classified as Western Igbo. Then we came to Midwest Igbo. Then we came to Delta Igbo. And Igbo is a corrupted way of pronouncing Igbo. And some of my brothers from the Ndokwa Okwani extraction who tend to fight and say we don't want to be associated with the Igbo. Some live in self-denial. Why do I say this? I was the editor of the book of the history of, that's the book of Fundo Sumili and Ukwani, people of the Niger Delta. This book was written by my late father, very Reverend Professor Okolugbo. And when this book was written, he didn't publish it before he died. He only published the Christianity aspect. I published that book in 2004. And I was able to read that book back to back as the editor of the book. And I remember very well that the book clearly stated and was confirmed by Professor Barry Kim, a foremost historian, who says that we are from the Igbo extraction, but we also have the Edos who came to settle, independent settlers. We have the Igalas. But in all, we cannot deny the cultural and linguistic affinity of our people from Ndokwa West and Okwani and Ndokwa East to the Anioma area. Why are we saying Anioma is viable? Ndokwa happens to be the area that has the largest gas reserve in West Africa. We're completely shortchanged when, for example, when I was a commissioner in Delta State, when I had the privilege of serving in Deso Padek, quantum of production was just 9%, which I thought was not fair. The Shekiris had 29%, the Jaws had 27%, the Urubos had 21%, and the Isokos had 14%. And I was further reduced to 4%. I had a colleague who was serving with me. That I had to do 90 projects was because I had to go cap in hand, begging the members of the House of Assembly who were from Anyocha, Oshimili, and Ika to give me the jobs because they were not considered as oil producing. So there are works that were domiciled in my area. That was domiciled in the oil producing area. I took them to my area. That was one of the secrets of my success. So I know what marginalization is, and I know the advantage of us going to Anioma. And don't also forget that in 2006, there was a committee set up by the National Assembly, headed by Iwanyanwu, for there to be creation of state. Anioma was also one of those who was promoted by the late Asagba of Asaba. And so it is not a one-man show as is being connoted. We believe in the project, and I believe by the time the referendum is done, our people would have been educated on the reason why we should have the Anioma in the southeast, because the southeast has been said to be a dotted region, a landlocked region. Now, if you create Anioma state, and for example, we also collaborate with ANIM, which has been one of the states that is agitating, you will now have the area no more landlocked, because we are bordered by the Isokos, the Urubos, Ethiopia East, on our borders. And I think it's going to be a win-win situation if this one state is considered by the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It will be a landmark decision to be the first state to have been created under the civilian regime, as it were.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question that I think we've asked a number of our guests, and I'd like to get your perspective on this. Should we be creating more states? I ask because while I understand the sentiment and the arguments for the creation of Anioma state in the spirit of fairness, if you look at the number of states per geopolitical area, but in a recent report by Budget where we looked at the state of the states, about 28 states in Nigeria are not viable, including the states that have resources. Because I hear you talk about gas deposits. There are states that have oil deposits. There are states that have mineral deposits that are not viable. Should we not be looking at more resource, the way that resources and revenue is distributed among states, as opposed to creating more states? More states means more seats in the National Assembly. The women are also still pushing for more seats. The bill to have more seats exclusively for women in the National Assembly. This is money, revenue going into this. Should we be clamoring for more states or looking at other ways to even make the present states more viable and to reduce the cost of governance?
Okay, I actually went for that retreat with my senator, Led Nwoko, and one of the things that were canvassed was the issue you have just raised, the viability of the states. Now, a committee has been set up. It's a very important question you have asked. This committee is headed up by Senator Mungunu. He's the chief whip of the Senate. The one for the House of Rep is headed by Honorable Julius. You have Senator Dan Zazdao, you have Senator Ume, you have Senator Dixon, and I think you also have Senator Adeola as part of that committee. Now, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to put up modalities for which we are going to use in terms of determining which they are going to use in terms of determining which of these states are viable. That is why in the Southeast, Senator Ome is representing the Southeast, and Honorable Miriam Onoha is representing the Southeast in the House of Reps. What I think they should do is to hit the ground running. Why Anioma is particular is because Anioma will be very viable. Anioma already can even take care of itself without even IGR. We are agrarian, and we know how to produce a lot of farm produce, apart from our large gas deposit. And, you know, you might not know this, Ayo, but we have Eneja, we have Pillar, we have Platform, we have Ajib, we have Midwestern, we have about 7 upstream companies producing crude oil in Ndokwa land now, and about 4 others in the downstream, which comes to about 11. And so, if in terms of viability, I think Anioma stands heads over heels above any state, I dare to say, in the 7 zones or in the 6 zones that the agitation is being made. And the advantages are such that, why do you create local governments? It's to bring government nearer the people. And even though the issue of viability is something you must put in the front burner, if the modalities are put into place, I think these 1 states that will be created, after this 1 state is created, then you can look at the viability of the other zones, because it was also said that there should be states for each of the zones, which will make the South is 7 states. If it is now eventually approved, every other zone will be 7 states, apart from the Northwest, that will be 8 states. So Anioma is a win-win situation for Anioma if you look at it. And I like us to deepen this debate, maybe outside this forum. And that's why I think Kenneth Okonkwo did not look at it with the empirical facts that were on the table. He spoke about Dada states because that is where he comes from. I know, like Ruben Abati said, everybody will want to be interested in their own zone. But the facts are very clear that in the 7 states that are being touted in the Southeast, Orashi, Aba, Etiti, Adada, Anim, and Anioma, Anioma stands to be most viable.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to come in here. You're talking about viability of Anioma and all of that. So you talk about viability, that Anioma has all the infrastructure on ground now. You said it's a fertile land. As we speak, can you tell me the tonnage of food that has been produced in Anioma? Because almost every state in Nigeria is fertile, but we don't see the empirical. Can you tell me the tonnage of rice, beans, maize, cowpea that is being produced in Anioma as we speak now?
No, we don't have rice. We have cassava. We have gari. We have yam.
Okay, can you tell me the tonnage of this food that has been produced?
We can export it.
Can you tell me the tonnage?
Why I can't give you the exact tonnage? Because we're not being allowed. Hold on. Why I can't give you the exact tonnage? Because we're not allowed to. We're not exporting now. But I'm telling you that the viability is such that we'll be able to export.
No.
Gari
I'm not saying in
Anioma.
export. I'm saying production tonnage. You might produce and not even export. Can you give me the viable tonnage that is even being produced, that is being farmed?
No, I can't give the exact tonnage.
Okay, so we don't have data on that. Secondly, so we don't have data on that. So we don't even know what the viability is like, since we don't have empirical data on that. Secondly, I want to read something to you from the Willings Commission report of 1958. And this Willings Commission report came after the 57 constitutional conferences we had. And in the 57 constitutional conferences, a lot of people were advocating for state creation, just like you are advocating for. In fact, then they were talking about Calabar, Ogoja, Rivers states, and other states in the country. Then the British put it to a commission headed by Willings. And these were their explanation. As regards viability, they said the new states will lack manpower, finances, and clean boundaries. And they will create fresh minorities. Because the problem you are trying to solve with the marginalization of the Anioma people will now arise because people like them Ndokwa, some year down the line, will say, no, why must we be with these other sets of people? Because exactly that was what happened when we had Bendel states. The people in Delta felt, why must we be with the Edo people? They are the ones taking everything. We created Delta State, and Delta State has not solved the problem. The second point from the Willings report in 58, it will create divisiveness. It will create more problems of divisiveness. These were some of the recommendations of the Willings report, and those recommendations are still apt today. State creation will create the need to create more state creation because we will have to actually see a bigger level of agitation. What will you say as regards some of the arguments as espoused in the Willings report?
You see, that report, was skewed because the British had divided us with their boundary delineation. For example, Ndoni in Rivers State, Ndoni, they speak pure Kwani. They are brothers, they are sisters. but they were in terms of delineation, it took the Ndoni people from original Delta or Bendel or Ndokwa it should have been on, it took them to rivers. And you also know that you have the Jaws in six states. Just like you also have in our Ndokwa, we have these so-called speaking people in Ndokwa East. What you have said is not far from the truth, but because the British people knew what they were doing, they knew that they brought the issue of divide and rule, which you must agree. They feared that the more independent people became by the creation of states, the more people were going to be vociferous, the more people were going to resist their rule, and so they did not want this to happen. And so if you're taking us back there, then maybe we're going back to what we would not want to remember, which was why you can see that even when the Asaba massacre happened during the Civil War, a lot of people kicked against it because Asaba division had been put to Benin division. Abo had been put to Warri division, to Yoruba side, and they did not want us to have our own identity as it is. But you see, creating fresh minorities would always happen. There is no way maybe you can call it that because I'm from Ndokwa today, I want to be the king on the table when Anioma state is created. Yes, I see where you are coming from. But that should not stop us from saying that we correct this imbalance of the 5 states that the Southeast have had. Then we can judge with our Southeast brothers without having to look like we are going to become conquerors because we have oil reserves, we are producing crude oil. We can now understand ourselves, and that modalities that will be worked out will allow us to live peaceably together without people now thinking that, oh, once you're a minority, you're not going to get what you have. Because I know what you're saying is one of the reasons we're talking about is on the basis of equity. But we are Igbo. Our ancestors are from the Igbo land. And you cannot deny that fact that ties Anioma to the Southeast.
Well, I started by saying new states
yes, I can hear you.
Will most likely create new problems. Already, as you were talking,
yes.
Some people have started sending messages. One person says, if a state must be created in the Southeast, it must be Imbise State. One of your Anioma brothers sent a message from London and said, let Okolugbo face the issue. We are not Igbos. We are Anioma. You should just not talk about we coming from Igbo land. And you have repeated it. Another person has also intervened. So you see, new states, new problems. But you say you want an Anioma state, fine. And we thank you for joining us for this conversation and making your case. You didn't say why you don't want Adada state. So before Kenneth Okonkwo comes back. And he says,
because Adada state is not as viable as Anioma.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay. I'm sure Kenneth Okonkwo is listening to you. But thank you all the same. We'll take